Hey there, I'm Ish. I'm a Trekkie, and this is a year of Trek. Welcome to, I don't know, I think it's day 11. Um, we've got two episodes for you today. We've got Return of the Archons, and we've got Space Seed. Oh my God, watching Space Seed today was so cool. I mean, I watched it 100 times, and they're like, it was, I just love watching that. So if you are new to the channel, if you are just tuning in, which there's a little zero up in the corner, so I know right now nobody's watching live, and that's totally okay. But if you're tuning in after this is aired, give us a like, give us a share, comment below, let us know what you think of the episode. Was there anything that you liked about the episodes that we watched today? First, we're going to get into Return of the Archons. It is Stardate 3156.2. It opens up, and we've got Sulu and O'Neill, and they're in some type of garb, and they're running away. They're running from something, and then all of a sudden, these Jedi-looking dudes come up to them, and one of them has a pole, sticks it in Sulu's face. And he's like, "Here, smoke my pole." I mean, he doesn't actually say that, but I mean, he shoves it in Sulu's face, and then Sulu's like, "Ah, I'm one with the body," and he gets transported up to the Enterprise, and then of course O'Neill, he was out of there. There starts our journey. So this episode, basically Kirk goes down to trying to find O'Neill, figure out what's going on. There had been a ship, the SS Archon, had been lost many moons before. Can't really remember exactly when they said it was lost, but it was Archon. It was the SS Archon or the USS Archon. But it's the planet Beta 3. So they beamed, so I'm watching this. They beam down to the planet, and we've got Kirk, Spock, McCoy. We've got a blonde guy that I've labeled overly concerned dude, because they didn't give him a name. And then we have two other guys. Now, later on in the episode, I basically figured the other two guys, so overly concerned dude, I don't know. Again, he was never given a name. The other two, I assume, were security, mainly because when they're taken to, not Tamar. Tamar is the one that dies. Shoot, I didn't write his name down. Anyway, so when they are taken to this one hiding spot, Kirk, of course, says security, and then these two guys run over the door. So, of course, those two guys from the away team are security. I was kind of figuring that they were security before that scene, because those were the only two with a phaser 2 in their hands. Everyone else, including overly concerned dude, had a phaser 1. So they were the only ones with the pistols. I was like, okay, that is probably security. Those are the red shirts. Now, did those red shirts die in this episode? No, they did not. And in fact, one of them was actually given a name, Mr. Leslie, or Mr. Leslie is Leslie, as it was pronounced by Kirk. I think he's a reoccurring security officer. I don't know if we've seen him in the last couple of episodes, but I'm going to keep in mind to look for him in future episodes. So, and the reason that this other dude, I call him overly concerned dude, is because when they beam down to the planet, they're right in the middle. They beam down, and it's like, oh, hi. They're approached by this one guy. He's like, "Hi, friend. Are you here for festival?" And they stop this one girl, and the the guy says, "Oh, hey, your daddy can put them up, or your daddy can find them a place to stay." And then, of course, the clock strikes 6, and boom, it turns into downtown Portland. Just rioting and fires and glass breakage and people screaming. So when they get to this, when they get to this one guy's house or this one guy's place, overly concerned dude was like, "Oh, that's your daughter? Oh, she's out there. You have to go take care of her." And it's just like, dude, shut up. Like, it's like, whoa. Oh, shoot. Hold on. I'm gonna scroll. Where's the line? I gotta put it. Where did it go? Oh, whoa. Slow to impulse. That's what I was looking for. Okay, now back to our episode. Okay, so let's see. So anyway, they're in Red Hour, turn into downtown Portland. Let's see. Now, okay, so after Red Hour is over, or really the 12 hours are over, the girl comes back to the house, and the Purge. Yes, I was thinking the same thing. The Purge. Okay, yes. And I was wondering if that would be the same, like their version of it. So after these 12 hours are over, the girl ends up, and she's all still hysterical, and overly concerned dude is coming down, and he's like, and of course, Spock and Kirk, and then now, of course, they're supposed to be kind of undercover. Spock comes down, and he's got his hood over his face, over his ears, so nobody can see that he's not human. And but when they come downstairs, like, his hood is off, his ears are out and everything, like, and nobody's paying that any attention. I thought that was kind of interesting. Let's see. Oh, so they're what is it? In their escape to the little hiding spot, they run into O'Neill, who had been absorbed, and was one was one of the body. And then what does he say? So Kirk wants to take him with the group, and he's being told, don't take him. He'll give us away. And so and of course, spoiler alert, they get found out. Okay, and so then they're so in their hiding spot. It's not so much of a hiding spot. Then they're taken to this other place. Kirk wakes up, and they find out that Spock is gone, or McCoy is gone, and then the unnamed security guy is gone. And then when Kirk is taken, he's taken to this big room, and he's locked up against a wall. And this dude comes in, and you think, oh my gosh, he's going to be absorbed. So my question, now we find out that he really isn't absorbed, because the dude that's running the machine is a friendly. But if Sulu, at the beginning of this episode, if Sulu was absorbed by somebody shoving a pole in his face, why do they have to use this big old machine to absorb Kirk and the others? I mean, is that just to make the story more like I don't know. Anyway, so let's see. Now, when they're in the hiding spot, Kirk is talking about how Landru needs to be destroyed. And this is the first mention of the Prime Directive. So this is the first time they mention this. So and Spock says, he says, well, what about the Prime Directive? You know, the rule of interference. And Kirk specifically says that only applies to a positively growing society, something that's stagnant, that doesn't go any, that would give them leeway to break that rule, because it's these people are not, their society is stagnant because of this Landru character. Now it's funny because my daughter has kind of been in and out. We watch as a family, we were watching the Star Trek. And so my daughter, she mentioned, she says Spock with wearing the black cloak, because everybody else is wearing different colored cloaks. But of course, he's wearing the black cloak because you got to have the hood over, cover his ears. She says, with Spock covering the black cloak, it looks like he could be teaching at Hogwarts. And most likely being one of the Defense of the Dark Arts teachers. I was like, okay, that's pretty funny. So that's a 15-year-old for you. Let's see. This was let's see. Okay. So Rob had texted me earlier in the day after he had watched, and he's like, yeah, he says, Kirk just, destroys the computer and is like, yeah, go for it. And that's essentially, let's see, what did Rob say? He said, because we had a little discussion. He says, Return of the Archons was a great episode, but then again, the ending makes me laugh. Kirk kills their god and then just fucks off with, now it's your problem. And I was like, yeah, Kirk tends to do that. I wrote down the line that Kirk says at the end. Yeah, Rob says a lot of things. So at the end, and it's funny how I can see why, I even laughed at it, because Kirk is so nonchalant. He's just he's like, okay. He says, well, you're on your own. Hope you're up for it. And then he tells the dude, the friendly guy that was in the machine, who didn't absorb Kirk and Spock, he says, well, it looks like you need to get a new set of robes, or get new robes. You'll have to find a new job. I'm like, dude, like it was just like, okay, my job is done. Now, earlier on, it was like he was saying, look, you guys don't want this Landru guy around, so I'm going to help you out. And then they were like, oh, but we want that, but we don't want it, because if he dies, then we'll be on our own. And Kirk's like, well, tough luck. That's what I'm going to do. Like, he's not even yeah, he was pretty funny. Now, in the end, in Kirk's last log entry, he mentions that he did leave someone. I didn't write down who this person was, but basically he did leave a team behind to help the society renormalize and get used to what's going on. I care about this planet until I break the society, then whatever. Yeah, totally. So he did leave a team behind to help them out, which was good. Like, that they needed, he's being somewhat responsible in that sense. So his nonchalance, him being nonchalant about it is humorous, but he does leave a team behind to help them out. And even in the last communication, he's like, yep, everything's returning to normal. There's been a couple domestic disputes and a couple, knockout, drag out fights. So, yeah, that's humanity for you. So I was thinking, I know, like I've said, a lot of these episodes have some type of message to it. not that this would have a message or not, but this is kind of what I got. I said, and they kind of talked about this. They kind of insinuated, we wish for a peaceful society where we are taken care of, but at the same time, we have no freedom of choice, no creativity, and that's where we become stagnant and we don't grow. So, so there has to be that happy medium. So, here we have this society in Return of the Archons where it's kind of that extreme. I think when we look at the Federation, as we see the Federation grow throughout Star Trek, the different series of Star Trek, that we do have that that utopian society, kind of how Gene kind of saw things. Like, we have this utopian society where, like, everyone for the most part gets along. I mean, you can't completely get rid of interpersonal issues. Like, we're going to have those arguments, we're going to have those disputes, but for the most part, all races, all humans, were for the most part going to get along, and we're going to have the tools to be able to get over things and work things out without fighting or war and all that kind of stuff. So you have that utopian society, but at what point do you have those characters that come out that really don't care? And so then it's like, okay, well, who do we put? It becomes that bigger picture of who do we put in charge that is supposed to work for us, for the good of society. But then they're like, oh, I can do anything I want. So, all right. So I've been talking. Rob's been posting stuff. Okay. Says, I love Sulu being reintroduced to the bridge with that shrug. Yeah. And then it's like, yeah, it happened again. Well, it's funny because when they said, when they killed, like, it happened so fast. Like, it almost seems like the scenes are like intertwined, because he's actually talking to Scotty. Like, the computer died, like he killed the computer, and moments later he's talking to Scotty, and Scotty's like, yeah, everything up here on the ship is fine and we're good. And then all of a sudden Sulu, is like, oh yeah, and Sulu's taking over his post. It's like, how much was Sulu in his uniform in sickbay? Like, that was a really quick trip from sickbay back up to the bridge. Like, you would think it would take time for him to even get dressed and then get back. I mean, I don't know. I just, or we could say that once, like, since Sulu had been so far away from the Landru computer, that once it was started to kind of question stuff, and even when, what was it, when those guys ran in and were like, Landru, we need direction. Like, the computer wasn't broken yet. Like, it wasn't fully broken. So maybe that's when Sulu came out of it. So I guess, in a way, there was a little bit of time for him to get dressed and ready to come back up to the ship. Let's see. Sulu was actually tripping on the powder that shot out of the pipes, not becoming one with the body. Yeah, okay. But was he? Like, I mean, he was still under control of Landry. So, like, he even, I mean, I guess you could play that away that he wasn't fully absorbed, but he was acting like it. He was acting like he was fully absorbed. I don't know. Maybe it was like kind of a hypnotic drug that puts you into like that euphoric state. So when you actually are absorbed, you don't know what's actually happening. And yeah, it's a weed joke. Well, I was trying to make it legit. Like, I think you could play off that. Yeah, no, yeah. Well, you should. Okay, so on this, what he was really tripping. So nothing. I'll probably get canceled for this, but this is what I wrote because this is where my humor goes, and this is nothing against homosexuality or anything, but we all know George Takei is gay. Okay, Takei. George Takei is gay. This is what I wrote in my notes. This is what I wrote. This is the poll. Here, smoke my poll. And then Sulu smiles. So that's what I wrote. You can take that for anything, but those were my first notes on that. So that's where my humor goes. Okay, now on to Space Seed. All right, so we are on to Space Seed. Khan! God, I love this. I love that character. Okay, so it is Stardate 3141.9. I think what I wrote a little note underneath the Space Seed title in my notes, and just he's like, I feel fatigued, Captain. Can you come back another time? I do bad voice imitations. Yeah. Usually everything turns out to be like Irish, so I'm really bad at that. Now, one of the things I really do appreciate about the new CGI scenes is, especially watching it on my big screen. Usually a lot of this stuff I watch on my laptop or whatever, but it was family day. We're watching Star Trek. So the one thing I really liked about this scene is the Enterprise. And I have to think, if they make one, I need to get a DY100 ship, the Botany Bay, so I can have the two of them together. But I loved, you get the shot of the Enterprise and the Botany Bay next to each other, and just the crispness of the picture in the digital. I like the new CGI makes that so gorgeous, and I love the original stuff, but like making it look more real, where it actually kind of flies up and it takes control of the ship, and visually a marvel. So when they figure out that it's an old Earth ship and that there's life on board and there's machines going, Kirk is like, "Hey, send that one historian down." And he gets her name wrong, but Spock, of course, gets her name right. And he's like, "Send her to the room." So MacGyver's, she when it's announced overhead that she respawned, of course, she's getting ready to paint, and it's almost like there's that sigh of like, "Oh crap, why would I go on a mission?" That was some quality acting. And then we get the beginning of the classic trope of McCoy disliking the transporter. So he actually bitches about the transporter and how it, sends off all the molecules throughout space. This is the first time we get that from him. So this is new. And I like how they continued on with that. So some dates that were thrown out. This was the late, the DY100 ships were late 90s. Were used in the late 90s, and so when it came to suspended animation, it said they used suspended animation for space flight back in the late 90s because it took so long to get from point to point, and that and that they stopped using them in 2018. So I know this is a TV show, Really kind of wish it was, reality, at least the future of reality. Maybe this historian needs to be fired because she got shit wrong. But of course, in our reality, if it was a Star Trek reality, we should have already had the eugenic wars, which of course this is talking about, World War III. And we should have already had space flight with suspended animation. So, yeah, back on the McCoy thing. Never an issue for 20 episodes. Absolutely. Yeah, I think we're a little bit behind the times for so much technology because of Trek. Yeah. Yeah, it is. That is kind of funny that that Trek has actually evolved our technology, but we are still behind the times of that universe. Okay, so hold on a second. I'm sure I brought this up before. Of course, we're in the 23rd century, and that's specifically because of Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. The sequel to this episode starts out as in the 23rd century. And there had been talk of, oh, well, we always thought Star Trek was a couple hundred more years further in the future. And there's a couple references. There's a couple references about how far back, that it's just kind of ambiguous of how far in the future it really is. And of course, in Star Trek II, they were like, okay, we're going to do this. Well, this part has never really been brought up, but I made a note of it. Well, when Khan wakes up, he's like, how long have I been awake? And Kirk says about 2 centuries. So if this is happening in 2266, 67, and Khan left in 1996, that's not a full 200 years, but it's almost 2 centuries. So I can totally see how the writers and the production people would think that Star Trek II would be in the 23rd century, that this is all happening in the 23rd century, because he says 2 centuries. That is pretty much the most specific that they've gotten. So, and then of course, when it came, taking a left turn at Albuquerque, but staying on the same subject, when it comes to actual time frame, the reason it's 2266 or 2267 in this time frame is because they're all basing it off of these actors' actual birthdays and the actual year, just 200 years ahead. So now, for me, again, some dark humor, or maybe just people to say it's bad humor. And this kind of goes, so Khan, Noonien Singh, or Noonien Singh, as is pronounced, Kirk pronounces it, he's supposed to be of Indian descent, as in like the country of India, not North American Indian. But he's supposed to be of Indian descent. Ricardo Montalban, who plays this fabulous, iconic character, is of Latino descent. So every time I watch this episode, including today, when his suspended animation thing opens and the thing comes out and he's like, how long? Me, I'm like, I'm Latino playing in Indian. But that's just me. I'm just some dumb white guy. So I guess I find that funny. So of the 72, what I think they said there were 12 units that were destroyed or were not stopped working, so there are 72 survivors. That's even consistent in. They don't really give a number in Star Trek II, but in the one movie that shall not be named, but it's part of Star Trek and it's part of our year track. I'm still including it into darkness. They actually do say they do use the name 72. They do 72 survivors. And then, of course, when they're thinking, it's like, well, who is this person? It's like, well, 80 to 90 people of these eugenic supermen didn't. They weren't found. Then it's just like, okay, well, they must have been on the ship. Now, so I like. McCoy is such a great character. I mean, of course, duh, he's lasted all these years, but this is like you see him slowly. He's slowly starting to evolve into this character that we know as McCoy. He's got these really cool one-liners. You can see the development between Kirk and him and their headbutting relationship. So when Khan kind of wakes up, he's already stolen a knife off the wall, and he grabs him by the neck and puts the knife to him, and he says, either choke me or cut my throat, but make a decision. And I was like, that's so McCoy. I love it. And then the knife doesn't move and the hand doesn't move, and so he's like, he says, I'd really prefer you to cut my jugular. It's right under the ear. Like, yeah, that's pretty good. So, and then when the historian, she's totally enamored, MacGyver's, she's totally enamored by Khan. And so when she comes in, and, she's like, oh, well, talk to me. I love, Khan. He's just this, like, I am the man. Okay. Let's see. McCoy started to really firm up in A Return of the Archons, and he's really becoming the Bones character that we know and love in this episode. Yes. Yeah. When MacGyver's comes in, Khan is like, he says, sit, amuse me. Now, my wife and I have this funny relationship. I call her woman, and she gets mad, but she just went out and bought a shirt that says woman on it. I've had friends call their wives women or woman, and they get yelled at. But they're like, but Mish calls Lisa woman. But it's an enduring term. I love my wife. So we're sitting there, and my when Khan says, sit, amuse me, my wife was like, what did he just say? Sit, amuse me? And I was like, yes, sit, amuse me. She just looks, and she's like, oh my God, just crazy. So that, I think, is another line I might use every now and then. He couldn't turn down the Latino heat even while playing somebody from India. Oh my gosh. So when they're having this dinner, okay, they have this dinner, they're all dressed to the nines. You see this yeoman pouring a blue drink. And is that Romulan ale? I mean, that's the only blue drink that we've ever seen as, Romulan ale is blue. So I'm like, did they somehow come across Romulan ale? Because, of course, where's the other big, we haven't gotten to it in the series yet, but of course we're all Trekkies. We've seen the movie, the big famous dinner scene with the Klingons in Star Trek VI. They're drinking Romulan ale. So yeah. So I'm just going to assume that it's Romulan ale. They somehow got a hold of the case. So one thing I found funny personally, when Khan has taken over the ship, he's got the main players in this room, and he's like, oh, he says, maybe I played it wrong, where all of you, on the verge of death would team together. He says, but if I kill you one at a time, and the viewer goes on after Uhura gets slapped a couple times, and it's Kirk in the in the decompression chamber, and he says, oh, and Doctor, you'd recognize this this machine and this gauge, but doesn't tell us what the gauge is or what the levels are. It just has numbers. So I know I'm nitpicking here. I just thought that was like, oh, here, let me show you this device, and let me show you this vague gauge, and the red line is going down. And of course, if the red line goes to 0, he's probably dead, but we're not going to tell you what any of those numbers mean. All right, so this actually made me laugh out loud. So Kirk is able to escape from the decompression chamber, and gets gas to be pumped throughout the ship. So they're in the conference room. The gas starts coming out. Khan runs out. Everyone's like, oh. This made me laugh out loud, and probably because I never really noticed it before. Scotty jumps up from his chair. There's a genetic Superman standing right there. He pops him and then runs away. And I was like, I had to play it again because my wife didn't catch it. But I don't know why I found that funny. But I did, because it was just like, it was just comical. He just gets up, boom, and then runs away. And then of course there's no gas being pumped into the engine room because Khan stops it from going in there. So Kirk goes in there, and then there's another big fight between two major characters. And then on the close-up shots, it's our main characters, and on the outside shots are two stunt doubles that don't look anything like our main players. So Kirk decides, okay, he's like, we're not gonna put anybody in jail. He says, we're gonna drop Khan off at this planet called SETI Alpha 5, and well, MacGyvers, you can go with them if you want, and then or you can sit here and be court-martialed. So then she's like, I think I'm going to go with Khan, and Khan's like, yes, I claim her. She is mine. Now, I know Star Trek 2 happens about 15 years after this episode. Yes, there was a fair chance. But 6 months after I was left here, SETI Alpha 6 exploded, laying waste. Can't remember the exact line, but yes. Okay. This is SETI Alpha 5. There we go. So SETI Alpha 6 explodes 6 months after they were left on SETI Alpha 5. And of course, I don't know. That's funny. Okay, so the reason this line is funny is because of the movie Free Enterprise. So if there's anybody watching this, if you have not watched the movie Free Enterprise, go out there, look it up. I don't know if it's on a streaming service, but It's the perfect movie for any major Star Trek fan, or really science fiction fan. And if you want to see Eric McCormick young before his whatever that big show was that I barely ever watched, before that became popular, before he became popular because of that that show, then you have to check it out. Yes, and specifically for any nerd turning 30. Any nerd turning 30. Now, I turned 30 20 years ago, but it came out over 20 years ago. So yes, it was very, almost like Ferris Bueller is the perfect movie for any senior in high school. This movie, Free Enterprise, is the perfect movie for any nerd turning 30. Like, it's just those movies that mean a lot at certain points in your life. So, getting back to what I was saying. Yes, the planet blows up 6 months after they were left there. And but I can tell why they wouldn't go back and check on him. There was no intent. There was no intent on checking on him. Spock even kind of mentioned something, because he says it would be interesting to go back in 100 years and see what kind of society exists because of them. So yeah, it's just, yeah, so there really was no, I think it was even planted in there. There was no intent to go check on this guy. Did your palm turn red on your 30th birthday? There you go. And if you don't get that reference, go watch Logan's Run. No, it's not a sports movie. Rollerball is a sports movie. Okay, enough of that. All right, so there you go. We have two great episodes of Renew. We have 2 great episodes today, 2 great episodes tomorrow. And of course, Rob is throwing out Logan's Run. Okay, so Rob, you know what we need to do? We need to, and I don't know how we're going to plan this. We just need to have like some type of, because I know I'm going out to Florida in next month, but we're going to have to do some type of like a Free Enterprise watch or a Star Trek. We're going to have to do something together, like live in person. I don't know. I might have to call out for Mental Health Day and just fly out to Orlando and we just hang out. One of those two. All right. So what's on the docket for tomorrow? Ooh, A Taste of Armageddon and This Side of Paradise. So we get another show. Where Kirk battles a computer, and we get another show where people's minds get altered and they are peaceful. So yeah. So tomorrow, and let's see, tomorrow's Sunday. Let's do a 5:30 again. I'm slowly kind of coming down. I was writing down times. So I think I actually wrote down 5:30 p.m. Pacific time for tomorrow. So and then as we go forward, 5:30 Monday will be at 7. The 21st, it could be earlier, but I have 8 o'clock just because it's a Tuesday. My daughter has volleyball. Then I have a private class I'm teaching. So 8 o'clock. It's going to be a little bit late for that for you East Coasters. 22nd is going to be 7. 23rd, which is Thursday, again 5:30 for Lower Decks, because we have a new episode of Lower Decks. And then instead of just waiting like an hour and a half, I'll just do another one at 6:30 for Thursday. And then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I'm going to a martial arts seminar. So those are all to be announced. Not sure if I'm going to be able to actually stream and how that's going to fit in, but when we get there, we'll get there. I'll announce it the closer we get. But that's kind of what we're looking at for the rest of the week. I will post that on YouTube or YouTube. Oh, I actually can. I actually can post to the community, I think. Okay. Yes, I see. You got a spare room? I will totally take over the room. I'll even sleep on a couch. I'm good with couches. It's probably where I'm going to be. Since I'm getting out to the cabin at Jim's late or later than I wanted, I will probably be stuck on the couch again. But it's a comfortable couch. So there you go. There's all the news that's fit to print. And until tomorrow, 5:30 Pacific, like, share, subscribe, and of course, live long and prosper.